Ball first and 10 at the 12-yard line of the Seahawks. Sean goes right, has a cutback lane, and he does. He's across the 20, the 25, 30, 35, 40. Here he goes. Are they going to catch him? 40, 35, 30. Touchdown, Seahawks! 12, they're bringing the trophy home. Your Seahawks, Super Bowl 48 champions. Holy catfish! Baldwin's going to throw back to Russell. He's got it! Touchdown! Seahawks! Are you kidding me?
Let's Hawk It Out with your hosts Kevin Porter and Rich Harris.
And we're live. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Hawk It Out. Kevin Porter here, along as always with Rich Harris. Hey man, we're extending the podcast for at least another week because the Seattle Seahawks, they defeated the Los Angeles Rams 19-16, and fortunately for us, the Detroit Lions took care of the Green Bay Packers, and sent them home for the season. So here we are, recapping the final week of the season and also previewing our wild card matchup coming Saturday. So Rich Harris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. And one tidbit we need to point out right off the bat, one of the reasons we're on Tuesday a little bit late this week is Kevin got surprised there at the last minute with some tickets to the game as well.
Oh boy.
So I think we both kind of needed a day of recovery after coming back from what's a really long day, as we've described before.
We sure did. I barely slept Saturday night. My wife got a text message literally 8:30 at night, was like, hey, do you want tickets to the Seahawks game tomorrow? My daughter canceled. And I'm like, well, duh. Hell yeah, I do. Yeah. So we got it. I literally was just like, okay, well, I guess I didn't go to bed till till midnight that night. I got up at 6. But like you said, dude, it's an all-day affair that Sunday when you go to a Seahawks game from the town that we're in, dude. It's a 2.5-hour drive there and back. Man, and then, going into Monday, dude, I did not sleep very well Sunday. So, Monday was definitely a recovery day.
Yep, it's the same with me. When I get back from that long drive myself, I do all the driving. I'm anxious. I just have that anxiety, especially after a win. But the road trip and everything else is just, you get back and your mind's just, still hustling. So I definitely have to have some brewskis and wind down. And me 11:30, and I had to get up and go to work the next morning really early. The next day, man, I couldn't do much except for maybe rewatch the game and this and that and kind of prepare for the podcast. But great to have a win. Very surprising, I'd like to just start out by saying it didn't look good at first being there and everything. It's a little bit closer and a little bit more impactful when Gino throws an interception on the very first play of the game.
That was tough. That was really tough.
You all see all the heads going down, hats going over their faces and stuff, and it's rough. And that usually it doesn't set a good tone for the game. And man, I tell you that, I don't know if you remember when Matt Hasselbeck did that once or twice, dude, and nothing against Matt, but it just usually sets a bad tone for the team that does it.
I was going to say, that
I don't know
Raiders
if we're going to
game.
climb out of this. You know, and the Raiders and the Rams were playing good against us in the beginning there. At least their offense got something going to start. Gino never seemed to get into a groove much at all, even though he got it done a few times, and that one throw to Tyler was spot on. Gino just seemed to sputter. It didn't really seem to get into a groove. So, the interception being the first play that I thought would be the bad tone and might have set the tone for the entire game. That didn't turn out to be the case. We were able to just fight back and forth. Our defense kept us in the game as they have been, and kind of kept them down in scoring. One little tidbit I want to point out before I hand it back to you here is we've only allowed 3 points in the second half and overtime for our last 3 opponents, and they've scored a total of 10 points after halftime.
Right.
So the opponents are averaging 15.3 per game over that span. So, at the end of the day, the defense is still holding us in the game and keeping us there. And we just need to figure that offense out, and we'll see what happens on Saturday. But the defense is still holding down the fort for us and keeping us in and keeping us going. So kudos to the defense for sure.
Yeah, I know we went into really good detail after that Jets game on our last episode, and I really do feel like definitely the last handful of games, man, especially coming out of that stretch of just uncertainty in terms of how this team was going to continue to perform the rest of the year. Our defense really has stepped up, man. I mean, Colby Parkinson, I think, or not Colby Parkinson, Cody Barton. I'm sorry. I feel like there was talk during the week that with our main dude going. I forget the guy's what was the guy's name? Jordy Brooks.
Jordan Brooks.
Jordan Brooks. Sorry about that. With him going out last week, I mean, he was going to need to step up. And I'm just looking at the stats here for our defense, man. They sacked freaking Baker Mayfield. How many times? Like, how many times has he sacked? Five times. Total loss of 24 yards over that span. I mean, yeah, dude. I mean, we can definitely sit here and nitpick our offense, and definitely, they were not. It was not a good game for our offense. I don't want to try to sugarcoat it or anything. I mean, you break down the box score, dude. We didn't score a touchdown until the third quarter with that Tyler Lockett hit. Which again, Tyler Lockett for the win. That guy. It doesn't even seem like he got surgery on his hands, dude. That catch was amazing,
can't tell
dude.
It all.
Can't
tell it all, and it happens so fast when you're there, especially TV. They get to zoom in a little bit closer, but when it happens there at the stadium, it's like, oh, it's a throw, and it just looked like he was too late. I'm like, oh, he was out, and then you look back up on the screen. I prefer to watch it on the field first. And you look back on the screen, I'm like, son of a bitch, he did it again.
Did it again, dude. Straight up.
And it's a great throw by Gino, by the way. I'd say Gino didn't have the best of days, didn't really seem to have a rhythm or a groove, but man, he sure thread the needle on that one. And Tyler did his thing, and we needed that touchdown to really kind of make the difference, I think, because it was just field goal to field goal to field goal, here and there. But we couldn't answer. The defense would get out there and stop them, and then our offense would do the same thing, and it was just ping pong match a lot there. That's why it was such a low scoring game. If we could just capitalize, if our offense just had some sort of a groove or a rhythm, and I point at Gino a little bit because he's the head of the helm and everything. But I'm not going to complain too much. We got the win, and I'm looking forward to what we can do down in San Francisco. We usually play them well. They're a great team. They have a great defense, but you know what? We're an up and coming team. So look out.
Well, and going back to this game against the Los Angeles Rams, dude, I mean, we play the Los Angeles Rams always play us really hard, no matter who we're playing in our division, for the most part, it's always a very tough game, because you never want to overlook a team. You never do, even with their record of 5-12, and this may be Sean McVay's very last game in the NFL for the foreseeable future. It was like you said. I think ping pong was definitely how this game played out here. I mean, we ended the first quarter up, 6-3, but then they come back and score a touchdown plus another field goal. So we're down going into halftime, if I remember correctly. And then immediately, we come out and, within the third quarter, we go 7. Then we get the field goal in the fourth. We tie it up. And then, we had the chance to win it right before the end of the fourth quarter. But then, we unfortunately had that miss, which is funny because when you're live in the stadium and you hear that boom, right off the field goal, that echoes for miles,
it does.
Man.
Yeah, you can hear it. Even in that big building or big stadium, you can definitely hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, luckily we came back. I mean, then you had was it Quandre Diggs that had the interception in overtime that basically more or less kind of got us the game, dude, because again, our offense wasn't doing shit there. But then we got that interception and we drove it down, and we were able to get that field goal. Because man, I mean, and I want to say, I'm not too sure. One thing, I know we're kind of all over the place here, but I just remember watching the TV broadcast back, and Ken Walker, K9, his that stand on where he didn't get in for the touchdown, dude. I mean, that was something to see there, man. Because K9's been money all season for the most part on that goal line, and they said that was we've scored on every single goal line possession like that, but just not that time, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just like you said earlier, the Rams play as hard, and even though they didn't have any playoff implications or anything, they kind of, look at the Lions. It's the same thing. The Rams came in, they're like, we're not going to let the Seahawks in the playoff. We're not going to let the Seahawks in the playoffs. We're going to do everything we can to keep them out. And they did a pretty damn good job of trying to keep us out. And then here you go.
He could have lost that game easily, dude.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was back and forth. It was anybody's ball game. Of course, it wasn't overtime. It was anybody's ball game. But same thing with Detroit as far as having a chip on their shoulder and having something to play for, is they wanted to beat Green Bay. And they weren't going to tell anybody that they didn't matter if they were going to the playoffs or not. They wanted to beat Green Bay, and they did. And that, they never beat Green Bay, or haven't in a long, long time at Green Bay. So that's another thing, they wanted to get that curse off their back. So it fell into our favor, which is excellent.
Well,
it was quite a night.
Well, it's kind of funny because, like, considering the fact that, like, with the Seahawks win this past Sunday, that ultimately eliminated the Detroit Lions officially from any sort of playoff contention going into that Green Bay matchup, that night. I was looking over here at our the Tankathon website here that we've been using all season, tracking the Denver Broncos, but I noticed that, with the LA Rams, they had the first round pick that they'd given to the Detroit Lions with that whole Matt Stafford trade. And by us beating the Rams, it actually solidified their spot with the number 6 pick in the draft there. So ultimately, I mean, we kind of gave them a little bit of a present in a sense by defeating the Rams, even though we essentially eliminated their playoffs hopes. We gave them solidified them as a number 6 pick for the draft coming up. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting.
A couple of underdogs, not intentionally or indirectly helping each other out. And I heard that, I guess, some of our fans too, after the win, we started donating to some of the Lions charities and stuff like that.
That's cool.
Just to show some support and just say, hey, kind of in it together from two different sides of this. And good for them and good for us. It's funny, I do have that NFL Plus. I've mentioned it before. We don't use it too often. And man, as I was leaving, my wife says, "Are you going to be able to get it on the radio on the way back?" I was like, "I don't know about that. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it, And I said, "Well, I have that NFL Plus. So let's pull that up." So we pulled it up, and she was able to watch it in the passenger seat, but we were able to run it through the Bluetooth in my rig. Man, it was awesome. We were able to tune into the game the whole way back, which made the trip shorter. We were tuned into whether or not our team was going to go to the playoffs and how that was playing out. And it was pretty interesting, pretty good stuff. So kudos to NFL Plus. That really came in handy. I mean, we're talking cell signal the whole way, probably not 5G, 4G, 3G, different areas of going over that pass and everything. And literally, I only remember it cutting off, she said, during the commercials. It just had a moment where it would cut off, because it was a commercial, and then it would come back and start playing again.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's
was planned.
That's why one complaint that I have about watching football, because I feel like this is the only time of the year that I really spend like watching actual TV. It's all the commercials, dude. I can't stand the commercials. So when you get that NFL Plus app,
and that's another thing they have.
Breaking progress. I mean, that's a godsend. For sure.
The next day or after the game, an hour after the game, where you can watch that condensed version, and it just totally just shows you the plays. It's edited very well. I think it gets about 30 minutes, and you watch the whole game. And it's a good watch. And that's how a lot of times I prepare for the podcast as well. Is I'll just go into that condensed version, and I'm sure that's what you were speaking of too as well, just to get a quick rundown of the game, to get a quick recap. So it's pretty good. But the mobile side of it, man,
it's not bad, dude. I will say, dude, NFL does it right, dude. When it comes to their mobile streaming, like, they do it right, dude. Like, comparing it to, like, NHL, MLB, and I don't know if I've said it on the podcast previously, dude, but, like, the NFL really does do it right when it comes to streaming online. So, just kind of recap.
And connected.
Yeah, so just, like, kind of finishing up here just on this game against the Los Angeles Rams, man. I mean, K9, dude, had 114 yards. He was averaging 3.9 yards. I mean, that's the one thing we kept hearing throughout the whole entire game there in the live attendance was a lot of records were being broken, Rich. I mean, it seems like this season has been a very eventful season for your Seattle Seahawks in terms of stepping up in terms of those records being broken.
Oh, a lot of fireworks, more than normal. Every time there was a record broken, the announcer would wait for the right moment, more than likely between when the national TV was on a commercial or whatever. And then next thing, boom, boom, boom. And it's just like, Kenneth Walker had just gained 1,000 yards, and it's like awesome. And then another break later, it was like Geno Smith just hit 4,000 yards or whatever. And then Tyler Lockett hits 4 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. And I was like, man, these records are just continuing. And it was pretty interesting. Geno hit 399 completions and 4,282 passing yards. Both of those totals broke the franchise records previously held by Russell Wilson.
That's crazy. In his first season as a starter, he goes in and just breaks Russell Wilson's record just like that, dude.
Records, yeah. And there's only 3 quarterbacks in franchise history who have thrown 30 touchdown passes: Smith, Wilson, and Dave Craig.
Wow.
So very impressive year for Geno to cap it off, and he had a 69.8, just under that 70 that he was hovering at for the whole year. But that was his completion percentage, was 69.8, and that set a franchise record and also led the NFL. He finished in the top 5 this year in touchdown passes, 30 of them, with a passer rating of 100.9.
He was the 4th in the league for it.
There you go.
Yep. That's amazing, man. I mean, like, congratulations, Geno Smith, K9, Tyler Lockett. You know, dude. I mean, this season was just, it had its ups and downs, dude. I mean, real highs, real lows. But man, here we are, going in. Like, I mean, again, like, honestly, when we were like recording last week, I was like, man, maybe this next week, this will probably maybe be our last podcast of the season. Like, I was already looking into the off season, man. I mean, the damn new top 5 pick. Here we come. But, you know, we are looking forward to this coming Saturday, man. I mean, your Seattle Seahawks are going on the road. We're going to be depending on how this weekend goes, we're going to be road warriors the entire playoffs. But we're taking on the red hot San Francisco 49ers. I believe they said are on a 10-game winning streak going into this game. But hey, man, upsets do happen. It's the playoffs, dude. It's a whole new season. So I don't know, man. What are your initial thoughts though? When you found out that Detroit Lions won and you were like, oh man, we're going to the playoffs. Like, what was your initial reaction to that?
I knew it would have been San Francisco. Either Green Bay was going to go to San Francisco or we were. And once I learned that we were going into the playoffs and we were going to San Francisco, I thought, you know what? Let's go to San Francisco. Let's play San Francisco in Santa Clara. We usually have a good track record there. We'll have to look up that stat. I can't look it up right here right now, but I know that we have a better winning percentage down there, I think, in the last few years than they do. At the end of the day, they are on fire, and they have a great, well-rounded team that's got all that continuity and that chemistry that we talk about. One of the things that they do, the guy's been playing great, but they're still on their 3rd-string quarterback. So I think we have, and our guys, I heard in the interviews, most of them said that the locker room is so much on fire. The Seahawks, they're just so hyped, and their chemistry is just starting to click and stuff. And they're like, man, we can't have this season end yet because everybody's just starting to gel and everybody's just starting to have that really good time. And so the locker room didn't want the season to end at all. So when they all heard that we made it to the playoffs, they all got to celebrate and say, oh man, we're going to get to continue this effort. And Geno got another bonus of $1 million for making it to the playoffs.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he got $2 million what do they call them, incentive bonuses this year. Very impressive. He had stuff to shoot for, and he shot for it and achieved it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was trying to look up the winning percentage down there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to necessarily bring it up in time here, but I do show that the Seahawks lead the series overall all time, 30-19. It's funny because this is only the second time we've ever met in the playoffs, which obviously the first time we met was the 23-17 Seahawks win that propelled us to the Super Bowl that year in the 2013 NFC Championship game. But here we are, man, in it. I've been hearing on the pundits say, I mean, it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, right? I mean, look what happened in the NFC Championship game this last year. I mean, the Los Angeles Rams had lost twice to kind of a similar situation to what we're going into on Saturday. I mean, they lost twice to the San Francisco 49ers, but then the 3rd time's a charm, and bam, the Rams were in the Super Bowl last year. And here we are, 2 down against San Francisco in the regular season. But
break that cycle.
Yeah.
And we play them. Hey, that's a division rival. So if our offense shows up and our defense stays the way they've been staying, and we, control the ball as far as the turnover ratio and all that, we're going to have a good ball game, and we have a great chance. We have a better chance beating the Niners than the Lions did of beating Green Bay. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a better chance than us beating the Rams, because the Rams are a lot more lowly and we were at home.
Right.
But we have a better chance of going in there. I don't think we're as big of an underdog as, like, say, the Lions when they went into Green Bay.
They're like a 10-point. I mean, they're
definitely we're in Alaska. That's why. So, but we're we're the forgotten about team. We know that. We could go on and on about that. But no, let's show up. Let's show up down there, and let's manhandle them, and let's show them who's boss and who really wants to go move on in the playoffs. I wanted to get one thing out of the way. A couple more kudos to hand around, because we're handing around kudos left and right here. Kudos to you and me for, in the beginning of the year, we decided that we were going to predict our team to go 9-8, and most people would have thought we were crazy. But like, again, we're both optimistic people, and we both figured this was going to be the record that we were looking for our team to achieve, and we didn't think it was all that big of it was not that hard of a possibility, since we were only retooling and not rebuilding, and there was too much hype about us losing our quarterback, but forgetting that we still had the very same system in place. And what do we always say, Kevin?
In John and Pete we trust.
You got it, buddy. And with that said, we've had 10 playoff appearances for the Seahawks in 13 seasons under Pete Carroll and John Snyder.
There it is.
10 out of 13. The Seahawks have yet to miss the playoffs in consecutive seasons since those two took over in 2010.
We're pretty spoiled up here.
And kudos to Seahawks.com is where I'm getting this information from. There was a nice article that pointed out 12 different things here that the Seahawks had this year to kind of summarize and cap these things off. So kudos to Seahawks.com for this information.
Hell yeah. No, man, I mean, when we look back to the beginning of our podcast here, and like going into the season and whatnot, and getting with the Russell Wilson trade, I mean, like, I didn't necessarily expect it to go the way it did in terms of, like, with Russell Wilson. I mean, like, the fact that we have a top 5 draft pick, we're in the playoffs again, like you said, 10 out of the 13 years, man, I mean, I think there's just, in terms of being a Seattle Seahawks fan, I think there's just a lot of things to be optimistic no matter what happens this coming Saturday, dude. I mean, like, coming into the future, man, I mean, this with all the draft capital that we have, all the, it's just, there's a lot that, I mean, it feels like we're just hitting, we're going to hit a stride here in the next couple of years where really we can, make a challenge for, hopefully another Super Bowl. I mean,
yeah, like I said, we were saying it early on too. Starting to feel more like in that area from 2010 to 2012, when we had some good drafts in there, and we had some guys that we hit on a lot of those draft picks, and we retained those guys that became our future players. And that's how you establish like the Legion of Boom. Those guys all came in around the same time. They gelled, they got that chemistry, and they were unstoppable because they could just look at each other, and understand what the other person was thinking. And that's how that's priceless. You can't, so yeah, we are just getting started again with this new era. And I'm excited as well, no matter what happens after Saturday, because the team is going to start the off-season program right away, and they'll start looking at that draft, and they'll start looking at everything that goes into going into the next season with every intention to do better than this year. Coach was not too happy. He's happy to get into the playoffs, but he wasn't happy with 9-8. I don't think the rest of us were either, because we really could have got more than that. We gave up some games that we really didn't have to give up, and we could have been better than 9-8. We should have been better than 9-8.
Yeah, I look back to that Buccaneers game over in Germany, man. I mean, that's really kind of when the everything went off the track there for us. We went on that skid, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, those are growing pains, and you're gonna have those no matter in a season. I mean, whether it be a 4-game losing streak or a 1-game losing streak. I mean, you're not gonna win every single game, unfortunately, but again, hopefully those are just moments that, as we were talking off air about, other stuff, like you have moments in your life where you have a situation, and you just gotta take it for what it is. You just gotta grow from it and become a better person or a better football player in this situation here. So I think they've done that. I think that the last couple games, man, weeks ago, dude, I'm like, there's no way we're gonna make the playoffs. And again, that's just me in my head, my personal, thought process, and it just didn't necessarily seem like it was gonna happen, dude. But it's just like, by some sort of grace, here we are, and we landed ourselves into the playoffs, after the football gods, opened up the clouds here in Seattle, man. And we, man, we're playing in the wild card this weekend. That's crazy. I think we have lost Rich Harris here momentarily. I am not hearing Rich.
I'm sorry. Nope.
There you go, buddy. It's all good.
I was going to say, let's point out and add to those comments about how this came about and how it developed. We have a few more accolades here. Jason Myers scored 143 points kicking, the most in the NFL.
Wow.
His game-winning field goal moved him 1 point ahead of Baltimore's kicker Jason Tucker's in the NFL lead. So you got Jason Myers contributed really well. What about Darrell Taylor? I think he was hearing it through the universe. We were always challenging him and trying to send some vibes his way to step it up and show us what he's made of. He's had 6.5 sacks in the past 6 games, and he finished the season with 9.5. Which tied with Uchenna Nwosu, which that guy's a beast. I'm so glad we got him, and I hope we can keep him. But they both had tied at 9.5 each for the most on the team. Both of them set career highs for themselves. So talk about having some dogs and some future. That's great. And then you were touching base on Cody Barton earlier with him stepping in for Jordan Brooks as the captain there on the defense. He puts the green dot on the back. He's got the communication and everything else. Well, he ended up finishing with 133 tackles, which was a career high for him. Wow. Yeah, I mean, he's in his 4th year. In his first season as a starter, and the second most on the team with those 133 tackles behind Jordan Brooks at 161. I don't know if Jordan Brooks was still leading the league in tackles, but he was at one point. I think before he got injured, he was still leading the whole league in tackles, or at least he was at one point throughout the majority of this season. So that's very impressive. Those guys are just always flying to the ball, and you can almost see those two in every single play, especially if it's a run. They're either one of those guys, if not both, are going to be into that play.
Since we're handing out accolades as we kind of get towards the end of here of this podcast, the one guy I just want to shout out, dude, that I just love him as a Seahawk. I've always loved him, and that's Bruce Irvin, dude. Coming in this season, it was his 3rd stint with the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, it seems like he's always kind of gotten injured towards the end, man, but it seems like he stayed healthy throughout the season. I mean, he played the entire season with us, and damn, dude, he went into Sunday, dude, and got 1.5 sacks. Up there on Baker Mayfield, dude. So, dude, shout out Bruce Irvin, in my opinion.
I think we brought him in I think we brought him in a little bit after the season.
No,
started.
You're right. Okay, it wasn't the full season, but it was towards the beginning. It felt like
we needed help, and we brought him in. They called him up. The John and Pete. Hey, Bruce, you want to come represent and help lead our rookies and help us out at the same time? And boy, did he. His face was on the screen a lot there at the game. He had a couple of sacks. I wonder how many sacks Bruce Irvin ended up with. We'll have to look that up.
I got it pulled up right here, actually.
It's got to be about 5, I would imagine, and he wasn't in there the full season. But
it was 3.5. He had 3.5 sacks. Yeah,
that's respectable. I mean, he's an older guy. I'm not going to say he's like an old man, but he's an older guy that's in there to set the example. But he's showing and proving. And how do you set the example? By exactly that, showing everybody else with your actions and not just telling them how to do stuff, going out there and doing it. Exactly.
Setting the pace, man. And, it felt like he was like that connection from what we had back with the Legion of Boom. We know that era, that Russell Wilson era, to today's generation and what we're seeing now in terms of what, Pete and John have been putting together for our team moving forward. Yeah, man, I'm just extremely happy with the way our defense has played the last couple games, dude. I really feel like that's been the story of this, the last part of the season here was our defense just really, again, they weren't playing lights out every game, but damn, dude, they held us in every single game to where we could have won that game. We could have had a way better record than 9-8. Again, if it wasn't for our offense stumbling out there a little bit. I really feel like moving forward, man, if they can keep it up, we keep the people in place, and add to it. Damn, dude. I mean, the sky's the limit, dude.
Yeah. Well, speaking about such a good draft last year, let's wait and see what happens in the draft this year. And if it's as equally or close to as good with the amount of picks and capital we have, that could be 2 great drafts in a row, and that's everything you need to get that foundation we're talking about. Exactly. And get that group of players that's young and it's going to grow together for the next 4 or 5 years or whatever. And a lot can happen in that time, and we're already right there on the cusp of it. So we just need a few more guys. You need that defensive end like we talk about, maybe a quarterback. If not, I think they're going to make a strong effort to get Geno back. We'll have more to talk about after the playoff game, but man, I think we covered a lot, and this was a really big game. There was so much to talk about after all those records that were set, and plus both you and I being there too, that was a little different dynamic than we're used to. So I don't have much more except for that I'm really excited for Saturday, and we'll have a podcast a few days after that, either way it goes.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited for Saturday, dude. I guess, final words from me is just, being at the game. It's always a great experience being in Seattle, being among the 12s, in the stadium every single time. That's going to be just an enjoyable experience. Man, I mean, again, we're in the playoffs, dude. You never know what's going to happen. Hopefully this Saturday, we can go in and at least compete throughout the entire game there against San Francisco, and hopefully come up with a win. You never say never, dude.
If we can get all teams to show up, defense, offense, and special teams, and do their part, we have a great chance, I think.
Hell yeah. All right, Rich Harris. Well, we'll go ahead and end it there. And like you said, man, we'll be back next week for, let's talk it out, dude. So I'm Kevin Porter for Rich Harris. We'll see you guys next time.
All right.
I gotta ask a question. Can you win a game in the first quarter? No! Can you win the game in the second quarter? No! Can you win the game in the third quarter? No! Can you win the game in the fourth quarter?